The following is an audiophonic baseball experience. Merry Christmas, Stoveminders! Year's almost over, the Christmas holidays are over, and the stove has been keeping us warm every cold step along the way. Front offices and agents and everybody on the stove has been busy this holiday week, none more so than old Scott Boras, the Ebenezer Scrooge of the baseball world, working all through the holidays to secure some big contracts to some of his big-armed clients. None more so than left-handed starting pitcher Hyun-jin Ryu, who landed a 4-year, $80 million deal courtesy of the Toronto Blue Jays. This here is quite a splash in Lake Ontario. The most high-risk, high-reward move of this stove so far. Ryu has had a litany of injuries throughout his career, but when he's been healthy, he's been very effective. In 2019, he threw over 182 innings, which is actually the most since his rookie year. Or in that amount of work, he had a 2.32 ERA, a 3.10 FIP, a WHIP of 1.007. He led the majors in ERA and walk rate per 9, 1.2, and finished second in Cy Young voting over in the NL. Pretty freaking impressive. You know, him and Boras probably went out here looking for a big contract, and the Blue Jays are a team that's got money to spend, got a serious need at starting pitching, and a core of young up-and-coming hitters who they need to build around. Bringing in Ryu, I think, is a really good move for the Blue Jays, though it is risky. Again, his career numbers, when healthy, are good. In parts of 6 seasons, Ryu has an ERA just under 3, a FIP of 3.32, an 8-2 strikeout to walk per 9 ratio, and 62% of his career starts have been quality. This is also a guy who missed all of 2015 due to Tommy John surgery, threw less than 5 innings in 2016 after he came back, and he also missed about half or so of the 2018 campaign with some health ailments as well. Ended up taking a qualifying offer from the Dodgers to say, you know what, I can get a better deal if I put together a full healthy season, and he did that, and he stepped up, and he pitched like a madman out there. Heads from one city where he was one of many big-name players, definitely not one of the biggest names, over to a team where he's now easily the best pitcher. From one city with a big Korean community to another. They love their baseball over there. They love their merchandise bandwagons, and already Hyun-jin Ryu and the Toronto Blue Jays attracting a lot of search results over on Korean Google soon after this signing was announced. They already had a press conference. There's already the hype. Adding fuel to the hype fire, Ryu in that press conference said, "Hey, I came here because I want to win. Because the Dodgers not winning a World Series anytime soon. He wants to win, and he wants to be in the spotlight. He wants to be one of the biggest names on that team." So now they got an alpha dog ace anchoring a rotation with some other veteran arms who they added recently. Some inning eaters in Roark and Chase Anderson. Matt Shoemaker, who's an even bigger injury concern than Ryu. But with him there, and I guess that number 5 spot as well, Jays have a bunch of young arms who they can call to. A lot of sophomores who weren't so good in 2019, but also their top prospect, Tanner Pearson, is a pitcher, and he hit AAA last year, so you may see Pearson in 2019. Plus, they got Shun Yamaguchi, who was a starter in Japan, though he's been cited as a reliever by Trade Rumors and Baseball Reference. So, not sure what the Jays want to do with him, or manager Charlie Montoyo, but Montoyo's got some options to fill in those bottom spots in the rotation, and he's got a very reliable guy heading it all in Hyun-jin Ryu. Yeah, good merchandising move, good move in terms of talent and need. Yeah, you know, credit to the Jays. GM Ross Atkins at the start of the offseason said they're going to spend big money on pitching. That's what they've done. Now it's kind of up for your Bichettes and your Bigiots and your Vladdies to put some runs on the board and win some games. Jays also added a veteran bat in infielder Travis Shaw on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Shaw is coming off an atrocity of a campaign. 86 games in 2019, he hit 157 with a 551 OPS. They sent him to the minors in Milwaukee. They non-tendered him, and the Jays picked him up. And you know what? This could be potentially a good bounce-back move. Shaw, career-wise, 5 years, below-average hitter, but he's got power. In his 5-year career, he's got a 451 slugging and a 103 OPS plus, and a decent on-base rate. He can take walks. He can hit home runs too. He had 30 or more in 2017 and 18. A lot of the Jays' young players are infielders, but there's potentially a spot for Shaw at first base where Justin Smoke is now gone, and where he does have some experience. They can also play second and third, or even DH there. They're not really solidified at designated hitter either. So, yeah, not a bad move for the Jays, too. I think the fans would have liked maybe an outfielder instead, but hey, it's depth, if anything. The hype train is building some steam in Toronto, but not as much steam as on the south side of Chicago, where the White Sox hype train has just been ringing that horn, pulling it down, gunning it through the station, 120 miles per hour. Why? Well, this past week they acquired Dallas Keuchel and Edwin Encarnacion. Keuchel, another Boras client, left-handed starting pitcher. He got a 3-year deal worth $55.5 million, which is about $18.5 million a year on average. Coming off a really weird year where he was asking a lot during the Stove, and no team wanted to sign him because of that and the drafted compensation, so he ended up sitting out the whole spring. Didn't sign till June. Ended up pitching 112-plus innings with the Braves. Not very good numbers. I mean, 3.75 ERA, but with a FIP of 4.72. WHIP above 1.3. Kind of a high walk rate. It's kind of been the story of Keuchel since he won that 2015 Cy Young. In the 4 years since then, his strikeout rate is only about 7 per 9. His walks have gone up. His FIP is sort of in the higher bracket of the 3 range of 3.7 to 3.9. There's also his career splits. He's been definitely better at Minute Maid, where he spent the majority of his career. Then away from it, 3.06 ERA to 4.33 ERA, and that's in 8 seasons. WHIP comparisons, 1.15, 1.379. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's, a beneficiary of the Astros cheating or anything, but he's at least better pitching in Houston. Moving over to Chicago now, Keuchel has 28-plus career innings on the south side. 12 walks in those 28 innings, 1.8 WHIP, 5.4 ERA. He's sucked in Chicago since then. He's going to maybe suck there from the next 3 years, but we don't know. A lot of people are very low on Keuchel, whether that's the fans or the posters or even other teams, considering it took the White Sox to offer him a deal he would like. But again, the pitching is something they needed, and this guy is at least adequate. He's better than James Shields. I think we can agree Keuchel is better than Shields. And now he's going to be near the top of a rotation that has Lucas Giolito, Gio Gonzalez, who the Sox got on a bargain. I didn't mention the details of the contract because they hadn't been released yet last week, but that's 1 year, $4.5 million. Then they got some intriguing young arms to round out the rotation: Kopech, Cease, Lopez. We'll see what ends up there with the White Sox, but bringing in Keuchel, who's been relatively healthy and relatively effective. Is he an ace? Maybe not, but is he a decent mid to upper end of the rotation kind of guy? Yeah. So give yourself a little clap, Rick Hahn. But perhaps an even better signing to improve an already interesting, potentially powerful lineup is the addition of Edwin Encarnacion on a 1 year, $12 million deal. This guy is one of the heaviest hitters in baseball. 8 straight 30-plus home run seasons. He hit 34 last year in 109 games between the Mariners and the Yankees. Definitely more of a power guy than a contact high. He's been about a 250 hitter in the last 4 years. But he gets on base a lot. Guys are scared to pitch to just because his power is ridiculous. And he can still play first base, which can't say that about Nelson Cruz. Encarnacion will be 37 next season. He's only really going to get 1-year deals from here on out. Does include an option. And you want to think about White Sox lineup in 2020? Tim Anderson, yeah, I don't think he's going to repeat those numbers, but, not bad. Moncada, Abreu, Encarnacion, Grandal, got Jimenez, soon Robert, Madrigal, who knows how Nomar Mazar is going to perform. A good addition for the White Sox, taking advantage of a weak AL Central, the AL Comedy Central. But this was actually an active division this past week. Cleveland Indians, who've just had a weird and just disappointing hot stove so far. They actually signed somebody, second baseman Cesar Hernandez, to a 1-year, $6.25 million deal. Hernandez is a good contact hitter. Last year he hit .279 with the Phillies, which is about at his career average. Not really a power guy. Career OPS plus 97. 14 home runs he hit last year, considered good for him. But he also had 31 doubles and 3 triples this past season. This guy can run around the bases, and again, good batting average, good on base, both last season and career. Hernandez will be their new second baseman with Jason Kipnis gone, and offensively, a improvement in that department. His glove is around average. He had 6 defensive run saves in 2019, but he's kind of fluctuated with his metrics over his career. Again, mainly second baseman, but he can play on the left side of the infield and in the corner outfield. I was wondering why the Phillies non-tendered him when they did. Hernandez was like the weirdest non-tender this past season for me. But looking at it, the payday he got was about half of what he was projected to get in arbitration from the Phillies, which was $11.8 million, which, yeah, I'd say that's an overpay for Cesar Hernandez. And they also got Segura and Kingery, and clearly the Phillies were looking at Didi Gregorius because they signed him so early. So a good addition, a welcome addition to the Indians, who seriously need some bats. But I'm not understanding what this regime of President Chris Antonetti and GM Mike Chernoff are doing in Cleveland. They've completely squandered this window. They traded Trevor Bauer for a rental and Franmil Reyes. They traded Kluber for fuck all. And, oh, look at this. We got Cesar Hernandez and Delino DeShields Jr. That's my response to that. Bah-hooey, the Cleveland Indians. I don't know, you know what, they won 90-plus games last season. But the White Sox are going to be better, and maybe the Tigers are going to be better. They did sign 2 players, 2 ex-twins, to identical 1-year, $6.1 million contracts. Some next-level autism on the parts of the Tigers front office, but who did they get? They got Jonathan Scope and C.J. Cron. Both guys are experienced bats. They're about average hitters. Both their career OPS pluses are above average. They'll give you somewhere in the 250 to 260 range batting. Scope in particular is interesting. He's an adequate hitter all around, and he's had good seasons, good runs in the past. He's kind of an average to below outfielder. He's had between 0 and 3 defensive runs saved in the past 3 years, playing mostly second base. He'll slot in nicely for the Tigers there. I looked at their roster from last season just to kind of figure out where these guys would fit in the lineup, and wow, I've never heard of any of these guys. Just a lowly ball club there in Detroit. But yeah, the only real competition Scope has is Harold Castro, but he actually plays better defensively at third and corner outfield. C.J. Cron, on the other hand, has been more consistent, if also more average in his career than Scope. He's not a very good fielder. He'll most likely have to play DH, which is tough for the Tigers with Miguel Cabrera and Brandon Dixon. Crone is also a first baseman, where the Tigers have Brandon Dixon, who was one of their better hitters last season. Might be kind of a tough fit, but you know what? Either way, two clear improvements to what was one of the worst offenses in the major leagues last year. I guess well done, Detroit. Kind of an overpay for Crone. Maybe not for Scope, depending what kind of Scope we'll get next season. And the Tigers don't exactly have a ton of cap space, but they're not really in a place where they're going to go after the big-name free agents just yet. So they better hope some money will be coming off the books in the next few years. But for now, it's just about bringing in guys to keep them competitive. Maybe they'll have a good first half and they could flip them. We'll have to see. Elsewhere around the league, the Dell Betances is staying in New York, going over to Queens on a 1-year, $7.5 million deal, plus an option that includes a $3 million buyout. So Betances gets paid while also staying in his hometown. And that's great news for him because he's coming off a very tragic 2019. He missed the first 5 months of the season due to shoulder injury. And in his first appearance back, he tore his Achilles and missed the rest of the season. But before those debacles, Betances was a very good reliever. In 8 seasons with the Yankees, he's a 4-time All-Star. His ERA and FIP are both in the 230s. His whip is 1.043, and that's with a lot of walks, doesn't allow a lot of hits, strikes out guys like a motherfucker. 14.6 K through 9 average for Betances. But he's not necessarily a closer. He's only converted just under two-thirds of the 55 save opportunities he's had in his career. But that's not a big worry for the Mets because they have a talent-wise, on paper, loaded bullpen with Edwin Diaz and Yuris Familia and Seth Lugo and Jesselman and Waka and even Brock and Justin Wilson providing depth. And out of all those guys, Betances might just be the best if he's healthy next season. And these were the first major injuries of his career, so we'll see how that goes. But the Metis making what I actually think is a good addition, bringing in Betances. Down in Arizona, the Diamondbacks continue to make moves. Diamondbacks signed Kole Calhoun to a 2-year, $14 million deal, plus an option. Calhoun, the outfielder, is kind of an average hitter with good power. He's been productive. In his 8-year career, he has a 249 average, 322 on base, 424 slugging, 105 OPS plus. He's played mostly right field, where in his career he has 12 defensive runs saved. He's considered a good fielder. Calhoun will slot nicely into right in Arizona, where he's going to be younger and more nimble of foot than Adam Jones, and a better hitter, at least power-wise, than Steven Souza Jr. So not a vast improvement, but a good add to a Diamondbacks team who could have used an outfield bat. Not too expensive, which is good news for them. Yeah, watch out for those D-backs next season. And just to round things out, a couple of catchers on the move. Well, one of them moving back. Martin Maldonado finally got a contract from the Astros, 2 years, $7 million. For 2 straight seasons, he's been traded to the Astros at the mid-year point. And finally, there's okay, let's just give this guy a contract. We like what he does. He's clearly liked in the clubhouse. Maldonado is considered a very good catcher's catcher, a game manager, someone who can work with pitchers well. 36% caught stealing rate, 6 defensive runs saved in his 9-year career, and formerly rated the top defender by Baseball Prospectus. So Maldonado, one of those classic catchers who's great behind the plate, not so good at the plate, career 219, hitter 644, OPS, but the Astros clearly like him, so about time they gave him his money. And Francisco Cervelli landed a contract, 1 year, $2 million to the Miami Marlins. Cervelli, who's at this stage will be 34 years old next year, has missed a lot of time with concussions. 2019, he played in just 48 games between Pittsburgh and Atlanta. He hit just 213, 649 OPS. Maldonado numbers for a guy who historically has been an well above average hitting catcher and above average just in general. 101 OPS plus and 269 average in his career. Also 11 defensive runs saved across those 12 seasons, but his metrics have been more on the average side as of late as those injuries are starting to pile up to him. However, if anything, Cervelli could serve as a mentor to up-and-coming Jorge Alfaro, who the Marlins deploy for the most part behind the plate, a good hitter with a developing defensive game. So Cervelli, a veteran, a respected guy. Marlins already added Matt Kemp, so clearly they're after some veterans to help this young team go in the right direction. A thin CUBSCAST. This team continues to do nothing. Not even any minor league deals. Not even really any rumors concerning these big name pieces who the front office is apparently trying to move. Which I guess is kind of a good sign because I wouldn't want them to make an impulsive move, and perhaps they really want to see how the market's developing, maybe want to wait till teams are a little more desperate as the offseason comes to a close. But with one guy, and that's Kris Bryant, there's a good reason why he hasn't been moved yet, and that's because his gosh darn grievance case is still not solved. And depending how Major League Baseball sees it, he could see free agency come a year earlier than is currently planned, which would mean he'd basically be a rental for any team potentially wanting to add him, which is not good news for Epstein and company, who want to get this guy and his dog-ass $18 million arbitration raise off of the books so they can add pitching and guys who don't just hit home runs or strike out. The only real discussion of note about the Cubs this past week was the fact that they are interested in Japanese outfielder Shogo Akiyama, though they are one of 5 teams with interest in Akiyama, and in that crop it's the Padres and the Reds who have been the most active in negotiations with the Seibu Lions. Akiyama is a 32-year-old center fielder, a good contact hitter with okay power and a good base runner, high walks, 2-time Japanese Gold Glover. Kind of a similar skill set to Nori Aoki, who is, other than Otani, maybe the last notable position player who came over from Japan way back in 2012. But Akiyama could potentially join Yoshitomo Tsutsugo and Shun Yamaguchi in Japanese players coming over to North America this upcoming season. It's the kind of skill set and the kind of hitter the Cubs are after. But you know what? Let's stop adding Tony Kemps and Terrence Gores and actually get one of these guys who's a bit of a different type of hitter. Get some variety in that lineup. Would be nice, right? Would be nice if Albert Almora and Ian Happ could provide that sort of production. But anyway. Actually, another major leaguer is going over to Japan starting in 2020, and that's Matt Moore. The 30-year-old lefty signed a $3.5 million deal with the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, so he might be pitching against Adam Jones next year in Japan. But more interesting than the number and quality of players who are going across the Pacific both ways, both from and to Japan and Korea this winter thus far, is these 2 fun facts. So Rich Hill, veteran pitcher, will turn 40 years old next year. He's had his share of injuries here and there. The skill, the ability to perform is still there for Hill, but there is some questions whether or not he will actually land a contract, at least more than a minor league deal, this hot stove. Well, he's not doing his chances any good because him and his fiancée Caitlin were going to the Paddies game last week at Gillette Stadium, and the future Mrs. Hill had a very large bag she wanted to bring in, and stadium staff said, "Sorry, ma'am, we can't bring that in for you." And Caitlin Hill continued to try to get into Gillette. She was arrested for trespassing and disorderly conduct. And at the sight of his fiancée being put into the back of a police van, Rich Hill ran to the rescue and attempted to physically free his fiancée from detainment in that moment. He was also arrested himself. And I mean, he'll probably get off easy. He's a rich pro athlete. He didn't really hurt anybody. He just, got into a bit of a fisticuff situation with some police and or law enforcement. But what really makes this funny is Hill is due to receive something called the Tony Conigliaro Award. And if you've never heard of this and you're not a Red Sox fan, I don't blame you. It's the Dollar Store Roberto Clemente Award, essentially. It's given annually to an MLB player who best overcomes an obstacle and adversity through the attributes of spirit, determination, and courage. And really, what's more courageous and determined in the face of adversity than trying to physically free your fiancé from the clutches of the state law enforcement apparatus? Badass, ballsy, if also reckless on the part of Rich Hill. Get this man a contract. What a maniac. I mean, hey, I don't want to talk too badly on old Tony Conigliaro. This award has been received by the likes of Bo Jackson, John Lester, John Lackey, R.A. Dickey, and now Rich Hill. And also something that was pointed out to me was this year's Gold Glove pitchers, Mike Leake and Zach Greinke, were both awarded Gold Gloves for leagues that they didn't finish the season in. Greinke won the NL Gold Glove, started the season in Arizona, and then was traded to Houston, while Mike Leake, who started the year in Seattle and eventually won the AL Gold Glove, was traded to the Diamondbacks in the middle of the season. So apparently the first time that's happened. Definitely weird. Definitely one of those baseball things. Hot stove, still definitely hot, and I think there's still some people who could get signed, and still some people who could get traded. So keep an eye on the stove, because you never know what's going to happen. Free Rich Hill. Have yourself a good day.